we'll be bringing those forward.
All right, very good. So we will have to have a discussion in the next budgeting session on the capital requirements for the PCCC. Final follow-up, Councillor Neufeld.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Do we have any sense of what the cost is going to be? Is it going to be 10,000 or 50,000? Please.
Mr. Manson. Mr. Metcalf. There you go.
Through Your Worship, we did have, like Mr. Manson referred to, we did have a complete building envelope assessment done. What we were doing in that assessment was we were looking at immediate fixes that we needed to do now as a follow-up to the report that we brought forward earlier in the year, as well as some additional recommendations for ongoing works associated with the building. That did include some major works to the roof, like Mr. Manson said, will be coming forward in budget deliberations. So in terms of value, we don't have a specific value on those at this time, although they could be relatively significant.
All right, thank you for that. Anyone else wishing to add any further comments? Okay, so I think at this time it would be appropriate, since we have the budget in front of us and the financial plan, for a motion to receive and to approve the financial plan. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Powell-Davidson. Any discussion on that motion only? Go ahead, Councillor Lefebvre.
So, thank you, Your Worship. So this approval tonight could be affected by the budget review, depending on the size of the capital program that might come up when we have our budget, when the budget discussions take place early next year.
Would this go ahead, Mr. Manson.
If I may, Your Worship, this budget is the budget for the PCCC. The only effect that it'll have on our budget is the operational subsidy that we have. In addition to the operational subsidy will be the capital requirements. And that's something that would be part and parcel of our overall infrastructure renewal and replacement program for everything.
All right, further questions or comments before I call it? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously.
Thank you. And I wish everybody luck in their future endeavors.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. You as well. Okay, moving to our third and final delegation this evening. I'm looking for a Darlene Kellett and a Lindsay Schroeder. All right, I don't believe they're here either. Is there anyone here representing 429 Craig Street? Okay, so let the record reflect that they were not in attendance, and we will move into the reports section of tonight's meeting. All right, we're on item 4A now, and this is a report from our Director of Administrative Services. It's regarding the notice on title for 429 Craig Street. Very similar to the discussions we had last week. Did you want to touch on that, Ms. Weeks, please?
The purpose of this report is to request a council resolution to file a notice with the Land Title Office with respect to the property at 429 Craig Street, which is in contravention of Section 5 of the city's building bylaw. An addition has been constructed without a permit, and the building is now encroaching on a neighboring property. There have been multiple changes to the building without permits, and it's necessary to put a notice on title until this is resolved. The recommendation is as per the agenda.
All right, Council, so you have the recommendation before you. Moved by Councillor Powell-Davidson, seconded by Councillor Lefebvre. Any discussion? Again, very similar to what we were dealing with last go-round. All right, seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving now to item 4B, and this is going to be introduced by our Director of Community Planning. It's a follow-up report, consideration of a development variance permit to vary the minimum lot depth requirements in order to facilitate subdivision at 371 Jensen Avenue West.
If the Mayor worship, required notification has now occurred for a development variance permit application for the owners of the property. The applicants are seeking a variance, as you mentioned, to the minimum lot depth requirements in order to facilitate subdivision of the property into two. Since the date of the meeting, staff have done notification to neighboring property owners and tenants in accordance with legislation and city bylaw requirements. Therefore, at this meeting, council must give those persons in attendance an opportunity to speak on the matter and shall take written submissions into consideration prior to making a final decision on whether or not to issue the development variance permit.
All right, so before we move to the motion, I'm going to now make available an opportunity for anyone in the gallery who wishes to speak specifically to this matter. You can certainly come forward. Ma'am? And what I'd like for you to do, if you wouldn't mind, ma'am, is just have a seat, push the little button so that we can ensure that your comments are being entered into the record and council can hear you correctly, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name's Laurel Dandino. I live at 383 Jensen Avenue West, rather, at the corner of Jensen and Molliette, directly next door to this property. At 2:56 p.m. on October 30th, I emailed information to each council member. I asked for a read receipt. I didn't receive it, so hopefully you got it, but I did bring all the information with me. I'm opposing this at this point in time because of how dangerous our street is. We still have open ditches. I have pictures of vehicles in the ditches. We have issues of lack of lighting on the street. If you look at the map and you go down in front of 348 Jensen is the first and only street light at that end of the street. This street is completely dark. I had a heck of a time backing out of my driveway coming down here tonight. We also have issues of just past that, the street goes down and has quite a hill. And backing out of my driveway, if somebody's speeding up the street, I've been nearly picked off a couple of times. We have no sidewalks. We have issues of not illegal, my next door neighbors, they're great people, but they have big pickup trucks, and if they have neighbors over, they're parked on the edge of the street because of the ditch, and I'm practically in the middle of the road backing out until I can see if there's anybody coming up the street. The street is quite dangerous. My understanding from one of my neighbors is that for over 20 years, the street has been on the radar for the city to have, like, it's only 2 car widths wide, basically. It's open ditches, there's lack of lighting, there's no sidewalks. In the 10 years I've lived in my house, I have phoned the city twice wondering when Jensen Avenue West is going to be, because it's on the radar, and I've told it's not a priority. Since I've moved into the house, the traffic on Jensen Avenue West has easily quadrupled, if not more than that. One of the problems is, when they were doing all the condominium development on Hearst, with the apartment-style condos, people started driving down Jensen. Well, now that there's the traffic light at McMillan and Hearst, people are still driving down. It is extraordinarily busy at certain times of the day, and with the fact that the street is so narrow, without sidewalks, without lighting, it's actually very dangerous. I'm amazed that we haven't had any major accident there. So what I'm asking the city is if we could get the street up to proper standards, get the work done, and then we won't have an issue of too many more people on the street, because the lot that they're looking at subdividing, the size of it is extraordinarily small. Is there going to be off-street parking, or am I going to have more problems trying to back out my driveway? It really is a concern, and it does concern other people on my street who have similar issues with not being able to see and the road's so narrow, etc. I had hoped, as per my letter, that maybe some of the council members would have contacted me and actually come out and observe the street and see how narrow it is. The ditches in front of 366 Jensen, the ditch is about 4 feet deep. Several years ago, a lady was out walking her dog in the dark. She slipped and fell in the ditch. Fortunately, her dog was really good. He sat down by the edge. 4 or 5 cars drove by. Somebody finally stopped, wondering why the dog was there, and helped this elderly lady out of the ditch. She couldn't get out of the ditch on her own. She broke her hand in the process. Somebody could have fallen in the ditch, banged their head, and there's water in the ditch, and they could have drowned. It is a serious matter. So instead of increasing the density on the street, I would ask the city to do something about how dangerous the street is becoming and the amount of traffic on it. I have a copy of my letter and the pictures that I emailed if you would like me to put these into record.
Yeah, by all means, please provide them to our clerk if possible. Ms. Weeks there, our Director of Administrative Services, will take them.
There's a page of email showing that I did email the stuff out.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to make the floor available.
Should I turn this off? Or?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to make the floor available, thank you, for anyone else who wishes to speak to this item. Yes, sir. Come on forward, have a seat, and if you wouldn't mind pushing the red button, and just state your name and civic address for the record, please.
Hello, I don't know what to say. I'm Brent Simmons. I'm the one from 371 Jensen.
Okay, so you're the applicant.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Sorry, I wasn't planning on speaking, but just I wasn't planning on, I don't think it's going to impede much of the traffic because it's just going to be an extra couple of vehicles, but it's because you see too, a lot of the vehicles, they are coming from the other areas. They're not really coming from the houses. And yes, I do agree. I have a couple of large trucks. And what I actually planned on doing is, why I think it's great for the street, for everyone, is because it's going to up the value. It's going to be the most expensive house on the street because it's going to be brand new. And also, if you look on it, it's actually over 70 feet wide. And so I have lots of room to make adequate parking. What I was going to do is actually, the house I was going to construct was going to be to the side so that for future, if I was going to sell it, you can have RV parking or whatever, right? So I just thought that would actually help too as well. I'm not sure what else to say, but thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. So once again, I'll ask, is there anyone else in the gallery this evening that wishes to speak to this particular item? Okay, seeing no one coming forward, we will move to the item itself. Is there a member of council that wishes to make a motion at this time as per the agenda? Moved by Councillor Morrison. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Lefebvre. Okay, very good. So we'll enter into discussion on the two-part motion, and we'll start with Councillor Powell Davidson as the mover. Oh, sorry, was it Councillor Morrison is the mover, and then we'll go to Councillor Powell Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to serve you to staff, wanted to find out if and when if there's anything for Jensen West on the capital plan, how far out it is.
All right, so that would be a question probably put best to Mr. Figuera. Mr. Figuera, do you have that memorized, sir?
If I may, Your Worship, unfortunately, no. I've been racking my brain trying to remember when this portion of Jensen is slotted for an upgrade. Of course, as all council knows, we do have a 20-year capital plan that prioritizes everything to the best of our ability, understanding the condition. There are many streets that do have ditches, and our standard for this type of zoning would be to eliminate those ditches, but I can't say at this very moment exactly when that is, but we're quite open to getting calls and disclosing that information when we have the report in front of us.
All right, thank you, Mr. Figuera. Councillor Powell Davidson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Excuse me. My question was the same as what Councillor Morrison just asked. I wanted to know if we had any idea when that road would be fixed. I do drive down that road on a regular basis, as I live near there. And Miss Laurel is quite correct. It is a very, very dangerous. People do park on the streets. People are walking on the streets, and it's a very dangerous road. That being said, I'm not sure I understand the direct correlation between the need to fix that road and the applicant that's come forward, and so I will be supporting his application.
All right, thank you. Any other members of council with any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like Councillor Powell Davidson, I travel that road regularly, and I do have to drive awfully slow because of the cars are parked on the side of the road. And at nighttime it is very dark, because when I come to the office at night, or if I'm going to a meeting downtown, I come that way. I come up Molliette and I turn down. I'm just wondering if, depending on where the capital plan is, I don't know what the speed limit is on the street, but I would imagine it should be fairly slow. It should be fairly low because of the traffic and because of the darkness, because of the lack of lighting. And I'm wondering if we couldn't do something sooner than later, especially with the lighting. I know that the sidewalks and the ditches are another thing, but I'm wondering if we couldn't just look at lighting first, because lighting at nighttime, it really is an issue. It's a dark street to drive down.
Well, I do know from past endeavors that I've undertaken on behalf of residents of the city, there is a small cost to the city as well as a cost to BC Hydro. They're the folks that actually install lighting. I've made requests in the past. They've been fulfilled. That is something I suppose one could look at any time if it was determined that there's a serious safety issue on that street.
I would propose, Your Worship, that I'll support the motion that's put forward, but I would like to see some follow-up, some serious follow-up with regard to lighting on that street.
Okay, well, I'm looking over at staff, and I'm seeing a head being nodding and in the affirmative that we can certainly look at that at a later time should this motion pass. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. So part of what's happening for me is because I did hear what you said about the traffic. I drive on that road periodically because I'm taking a shortcut, exactly what you said. And I know that there are lots of vehicles parked along the side of the road. And so the new property, it's my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have two big trucks and they're parked on the road, but the new building you're going to build will accommodate those two big trucks? Perfect. So I'm going to support this then. I was going to speak and say I didn't support it because I didn't have enough information. But if you're taking, because that's the only impact you have, and if you're taking those off the road, then I think it's okay to support that and request that we get extra lighting on that street. And maybe we could get a report from staff or send an email out when that is on the Capital Works.
All right, very good. Do I have any further comments from members of council? All right, seeing none, I'm going to call it all those in favor of the motion. Opposed, and that's carried unanimously. All right, thank you for that. Moving on to item C, ladies and gentlemen, this is now from our Director of Operations. I'm going to hand it over to him shortly, and it's regarding the washroom facility upgrade at the community park. Mr. Metcalf, I believe you have a guest here as well. I'll leave it to you to introduce.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the June 16th council meeting, staff were directed to proceed with the design to renovate and convert the existing concession and washroom building at the community park to washrooms and change stalls only, and provisions for existing concession services were to be provided by constructing paths for mobile food vendors. In order to undertake that work, staff have retained the services of Zeidler Partnership Architects to prepare renovation plans. Subject to Council's direction tonight, at tonight's meeting, the current schedule is to complete the design drawings for building permit applications by the end of November, tender the project for construction in January with a completion date on or before June 15th of 2015. Mr. Miroslav Proprotny from Zeidler Architects is here with us tonight to provide council an overview of the
Go ahead and come forward, sir, and have a seat.
And the recommendation is as per the agenda.
All right, so council has a recommendation on the agenda. We have the architect here to answer any questions should someone wish to make a motion at this time. We can certainly incorporate it. All right, so you're moving the recommendation, Councillor Lefebvre. You're seconded it, Councillor Powell-Davidson. And discussion. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Lefebvre.
Well, first of all, I'm delighted to see that there's going to be solar panels, I gather, for hot water heating.
Excuse me, I have a small...
Oh, you have a presentation? Oh, let's see your presentation first. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a presentation. I didn't see the camera. The screen wasn't on, so I assumed you were just here to... All right, fine. So when you're ready, go ahead and make with your presentation, and then we do have that motion on the floor. We'll discuss it after the fact, and hopefully you can answer all of our questions, and we can go real quick after that.
Okay. Your Worship, members of the Council, my name is Miro Paprotny, and as Al mentioned, I represent Zeidler Partnership Architects. So we've been, our company was retained to provide architectural design services to upgrade and improve the existing building. And so I prepared a small presentation showing outlining the direction, design direction, functional, and construction direction. So what do we know about the building? The building is located in Community Park and is constructed in 1993, and it is pretty much serving very well the community. Unfortunately, the current number of the toilets does not sufficiently cover the summer demand, and there are long lineups observed. change stalls are not used as they are too small, so people do not feel comfortable to use them. And also we noted while we did a couple of site tours that the air quality, especially in the male change room / washroom, is quite poor. So this needed to be addressed. So the project objectives were to maximize numbers of toilets and preferably without expanding building footprint. And decommission existing concession area and provide 2 permeable paths supplied with water and electricity for mobile food trucks. Update building look, preferably with contemporary West Coast architecture, and if possible, implement green energy saving initiatives. And as Al mentioned, the construction is to be completed by June of 2015. This slide shows us an existing condition. So what we have here is a building footprint, and as everybody knows, the building is simple construction with split-faced concrete blocks and metal-clad metal panel roof. This slide shows existing and proposed conditions. So what's happening right now? Currently, the building does not have any occupancy sensors and utilizes standard fluorescent light fixtures. We are proposing to use occupancy sensors and use vandal-resistant, energy-efficient light fixtures. Currently, there is efficient electric floor heating. We're planning to retain that as it serves well. Currently, there are in total 6 standard toilets plus 2 urinals in the male washroom. We are planning to expand it by approximately 40% to 11 toilets and 2 urinals. Currently there is no separate barrier-free washroom. There is one universal washroom that basically can be used by both sexes. We are allowing for 2 new barrier-free washrooms with separate entrances, and we are retaining the existing family room. All 3 of them can be used interchangeably, so it could be either designated for a gender or it can be universal. Currently there is 4 undersized change stalls, and we are planning to limit the number to 2, but to 3, 2 in a female change room and 1 in male change room, but we are providing bigger footprints so they are more comfortable. And currently in the building there is a concession. We are going to decommission that and put 2 new pads that will going to be used by catering trucks. Existing drinking fountain. There is an existing drinking fountain on the exterior elevation, but it's not barrier-free. We are going to replace it with a fountain plus a bottle filler that will be fully barrier-free. As a green initiative, we are planning to add passive green initiative that will be addition of a clear story windows to increase the daylight penetration. We're going to prepare the building to in the future to utilize gray water from the nearby water park. We made allowance, and we're planning to install solar panels that will generate electricity. This slide shows us the extent of work. Primarily the work concentrates inside the building. The red color on this upper left slide shows the demolition. The upper right slide, the bright white color like this one shows the new work. So pretty much the structural work is limited, and we are mostly concentrating on changing the configuration of the building while maximizing its potential. The lower slide shows the existing condition, isometric view of the building. On the lower right-hand side, there is a proposed. So the biggest change is that we are removing the fascia. We are retaining the massing of the building, the look of the gazebo look, but we are going to remove the existing signage and the fascia and replace it with decorative timber components. And as shown on this drawing scheme here, that's the solar panels that will generate electricity. Second part of the project is to provide 2 paths for the mobile trucks. So they're going to be located, that will be shown on the next slide, I'm going to show on the next slide where are going to be located, but this slide shows the idea what are we proposing. So pretty much we are proposing two paths that can accommodate standard food trucks. They will be supplied with 30 amps electrical service, water supplied, and they will be equipped with manual locking devices. The surface of the paths will be permeable, so the rainwater can fully exfiltrate into the soil below. And also one of the goals was that the paths will be easily accessible from the sidewalk. And next slide shows us the new proposed site plan on the on the lower right hand. So we're showing that the two new paths are located near the existing washroom buildings, and they are located along the road. So the cost of construction is minimized. On the upper slide, we have here shown the proposed new look of the buildings. So the majority of, as I said, we are retaining the look of the building. We are modifying the roof line. We are adding the clear story windows that I will try to point here. That's those ones that will provide more natural light into the space inside. And also we propose to reclad the building with a natural slate that will similar to the one that has been used on the existing gazebo. As for the materials, roofing will be similar to what is there right now. There will be standing seam metal roofing, shown on the drawing number 4. Then we're going to use natural stone, natural slate, as shown on this drawing here. Drinking fountain, proposed drinking fountain is this one, will be one and will be located on the exterior walls. Those two schemes on the bottom shows the diagrams. They show how the daylight penetration will be improved by installing the new windows above the concrete walls. This slide here shows the idea behind the installation of the solar panels. So pretty much we are going to locate the panels of the roof, and we have two options. Either the panels will generate the electricity and will feed the building, or they will be the generated electricity will be returned to the grid and will offset the cost of the electricity use. Again, here are several elevations showing the new look of the building. And this is the final look proposed that we are going to achieve at the end of the construction that we hope will be in June 2015. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. So with that, I'll open the floor to council. So Councillor Powell Davidson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. I'm very excited about these proposed changes. You didn't mention anything about showers, so I presume the outdoor showers that are in existence stay where they're at, and that's adequate. Okay? That's not my questions.
Okay, well, why don't we get Mr. Metcalf just to confirm or deny that?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so that is
Thank
correct.
you, Mr. Metcalf.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have two questions for you, sir. First one is in regards to the two pads that we currently have in the plan for the mobile food vendors. When these are as successful as I anticipate they will be, will we be able to add a third pad without infringing upon wheelchair parking, for example? So that's question number one. Second question I have is more serious, and that's in regards to the two trucks parked side by side in front of the playground and on the street. I'm concerned about children running through those trucks and out into traffic, and I'm hoping that we're going to be fencing off the area so that we can be very proactive about the safety issues.
I see Mr. Metcalf jumping at the bit. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Currently, where they'll be located is there is enough space for two trucks. They will be facing the area of the playground, so anybody accessing those will access them from the existing sidewalk. There's a large area that's currently has picnic tables in it trees. There's quite a large space between where the trucks will be located and the playground area. So at this point, we're not planning on fencing those off. As I say, they can be completely accessed from the sidewalk area, and they'll be facing away from the traffic. So we don't anticipate any lineups behind the vehicles or behind the trucks. They would be located in the front of that. With regards to adding additional pads in the future, really that will be based on demand, I would assume. But at this point, we'll be letting a request for proposals for the two food vendors in the new year.
Okay. You still had the other question?
No, Your Worship, I don't. But I don't think I asked my question clearly enough because I didn't get the answer relative to the question that I was looking for. I understand that the service area of the mobile food vendors will be facing the playground. What I'm concerned about is that the playground, the distance between the playground and the street will be blocked off because these mobile food vendors are so close to the playground. The expectation, or at least the anticipation, that children will be running rampant, get away from mom, and go flying through between the two vehicles and not be seen by traffic accessing that road. I want to make sure that we're actively looking at the safety factors of the placement of these vehicles. That's my point.
Okay, so you're concerned about the space in between the two of them, since they are obviously a barrier to observation of traffic going up and down that lane.
The space between them, the space in front of them, the space behind them. All I'm saying is that now that you have a big barricade between the road, which is going to be running directly behind the mobile food vendors, and the playground. And as the playground will be very, very busy with youngsters who tend to dart, cars coming in either direction of that road, their visibility of a child darting across the street is going to be impeded until that child is actually in front of them. So I'm hoping that we have some kind of a fencing or something surrounding so that, I mean, I don't know how much we can mitigate that, but I'm hoping that we're taking that into consideration. It's a safety issue.
Okay, well, I think we've taken that into consideration and aren't as concerned as you are, but certainly I think it could be reviewed further when, should this motion pass, it gets into a more detailed design. Councillor Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. 2 comments and 2 questions. My first comment is I would hope that this would be completed before the July 1st weekend. That would be pretty key. You know, if we don't have that washroom operating in a full bore on July 1st weekend, we'd be faced with a lot of porta potties all over the place. My first question is, the material you're going to be using inside the washrooms, are they vandal proof? Because I've seen washrooms that are vandal proof. There's no such thing as a mirror. It's a piece of metal. It can't be ripped off the wall, and you can still comb your hair and brush your teeth and all that sort of thing. So what about the toilets, and what about the urinal equipment? Is that going to be vandal proof?
Everything will be vandal proof, yes.
Okay, thank you. The other thing is that well, you had me actually at using solar panels and piping for future reuse of grey water, but I still have another question. How long are the washrooms going to be shut down for while work is going on here? Will you have to close all of the washrooms while the work is being performed, the renovations?
Potentially it could be done sequentially. Okay. But we need to look into that. We haven't studied that yet properly.
But porta potties could suffice, and if they have to shut the entire thing down?
Potentially we can retain, for example, the one family washroom that is right now there as a fully operational during the construction, because we're not changing the configuration. We're only changing at some point the plumbing fixtures.
My final comment is, and I'm repeating myself, but let's hope it gets done before the July 1st long weekend.
I believe that is the goal, and I think we can either help or hinder that. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The building itself looks really great. I just wanted to see if there was a breakdown of what is essential in it and what is facade and aesthetics. Just looking at the budget and seeing as Councillor Greer isn't here, I keep just referring to him as Al. Councillor Greer isn't here. I thought I should ask.
So we did allocate a budget for this, of course, and we're confident that once we move through the detailed design that we are going to be within that envelope. And then to what portion, I think your question was, of the budget was orientated towards aesthetics?
Yeah, just the cladding and the roof lines and the woodwork and things like that.
Mr. Metcalf?
I can answer the question with regards to the budget. At this point, we anticipate that the tenders will be within budget. Preliminary numbers look like, because we're not really changing the slab, we're not changing the actual building itself. Most of the changes are to the roof line, or to upgrading of the fixtures, the solar, those kinds of aspects. So at this point, we're quite confident that we will be within budget. Naturally, we don't know that for sure until it's tendered. But at this point, we do feel confident that that's within budget. We did run the numbers around what it was per square foot for the cladding, for example. I don't recall them off the top of my head.
For the cladding, the material and installation was around $28,000.
All right, very good.
Having said that, if I may add, if we're talking about aesthetics here, the windows that we are proposing, they not only play aesthetical role, they also provide natural light that will limit the use of electrical power. So pretty much we'll limit the use of light fixtures in the building.
So some operational efficiencies as a result of the design. Yes, I get that
correct.
very much. Okay. Is that good, Councillor Morrison? All right, Councillor Powell, did you have your hand up, or was Councillor Neufeld? Go ahead, Councillor Neufeld.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I'm fascinated by the solar panels, and to what degree do you think that we'll be able to generate enough power to be off the grid? And you had the storage batteries in place, and that. What savings will there be there? That's one thing. And what is the cost of actually putting in place the solar panels, and on an implementation basis, how is it working? A couple of questions there, and I have a third one. Go ahead.
So we contacted, during the preliminary design, we contacted the solar power supplier and installation company. The total cost of installation of 18 solar panels as we design on this building, material and installation will be in the range of $15,000–17,000, and the panels can generate electricity. Well, will there be big savings? In short term, no. In long term, yes. But the panel will generate. The return rate is around equal to warranty time of the panels, and the warranty time is around 20 years. So at the end of 20 years of use, the bill is zero. Having said that, also that the electricity generated will supply pretty much most electricity that is required currently to operate the building.
Go ahead, Councillor Neufeld.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. On a day such as today, I mean, it's overcast, it's rainy, and it's to what extent can the solar panels actually make use of whatever ultraviolet is coming through? And is it possible, or are we solely geared to the backup storage that is there? How will that phase in?
The building needs to be connected to the electrical grid. It's
Okay.
not that we'll be disconnected. So this will be as a backup system. So the preference is that the electricity will be returned to the grid, and the BC Hydro will pretty much pay the bill.
And that possibility probably exists during certain times of the year when we have high solar output, and then we'll be drawing from the grid at other times of the year. But if I understood you correctly, essentially through the lifespan of those panels, you would anticipate that they would have offset their cost with operational savings, correct?
That
over
would
the
be
20-year
warranty
period.
time, but the lifespan will be longer.
Would
So
be
the
longer,
lifespan
but
would
the
like
warranty
to-
period.
Yep.
Okay, very good. We're good? All right, very good. So any further questions or comments from council? So before we call the vote, I just wanted to say I think that's pretty spectacular for a washroom facility, and I think it's I think it's important, though, because, you know, honestly, if you look at our policies and how much we encourage private developers to consider alternatives like solar panels, like gray water reuse, et cetera, you kind of have to walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk. And I'm going to share a washroom story with you all, because I think it's very important that you have adequate facilities. I was recently in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and a beautiful place. But they had pretty crappy washrooms, and the one that was available had a lineup halfway around it, and it was so bad that the little lady came out and handed one piece of toilet paper to every person in the line. And it really took away a lot of the fun that we could have been having. So I would hate to see folks coming into our community park, as they have been, and not having decent, adequate facilities. I don't think that we can stress how important that is, especially families, right, having those facilities and feeling comfortable using them. So that's the end of my little speech. Anything further? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. We'll get back, a new mayor and council will be able to look at the detailed designs when the development permit process begins. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate taking the time. All right, we're moving right along, ladies and gentlemen. Our next item is item 4D, and this is from our Director of Administrative Services, and it's regarding the appointment of Traffic Bylaw Enforcement Officer, Ms. Weeks.
So the City of Parksville's Bylaw Enforcement Officer bylaw, the Policy Act, and the Community Charter all provide for the appointment of traffic bylaw enforcement officers for the City of Parksville. With retirement of the Commissioner Andy Becerra, it is necessary to appoint his successor, and the recommendation is as per the agenda.
Two-part recommendation there, Council. Moved by Councillor Powell Davidson, seconded by Councillor Lefebvre. Any discussion? Councillor Powell Davidson, then Councillor Neufeld.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to know, I believe that Mr. Basra was with us for quite a long time. I recall him when I first moved here. And I'm just wondering, in light of his retirement, have we sent along anything to honor his retirement?
You mean like giving them a parking ticket or something like that?
Yeah, you know, the one that we all signed.
Have we done anything with regard to, and actually Councillor Powell Davidson is quite correct. I do believe this gentleman's been working with us for a long time. Have we done anything?
I believe the Bylaw Department did.
Yeah, okay. There you go. We did.
Good.
All right. Very good. Anything further, Councillor Neufeld?
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things that is noted here is that Mr. Basra was, in fact, a commissioner of BC. And as far as the person that would be replacing the individual, Daniel Mackay, is he presently an individual who is employed by the city, or is he a commissioner? What is the situation, and what will he become, going as the traffic bylaw enforcement officer? What is the situation there, sir, please?
Well, that sounds like a very good question for our Director of Administrative Services.
He is a commissioner. He is with the same company.
So he's with the same firm as a commissioner. All right, thank you. Any further questions from council? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. All right, staying with our Director of Administrative Services, item E now, and this is regarding council remuneration and expenses bylaw. And this has something to do with a large bonus payment to outgoing mayors? Probably not. All right, go ahead, Ms. Weeks.
The purpose of this report is actually to request council amend the remuneration and expenses bylaw to change the time frame for calculating the consumer price index for council remuneration from the period January 1st to December 31st to change it to December 1st to November 30th. This will eliminate the need for retroactive calculations and is a more efficient way to undertake the same process. So the recommendation is as per the agenda.
So relatively benign recommendation there, Council. Is there a mover or a seconder? Moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Lefebvre. Any questions, discussion? Councillor Powell Davidson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question. This this, I lost my words.
I don't believe that.
I know. It's
I'm sure
hard
you'll
to
find them very
believe.
quickly. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, we're voting in favor of a time change only. Okay, thank you.
Just in the calculation of the inflation index, so there's no retroactive requirement, of which there's very little to calculate these days. All right, anything further? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our reports section. We're now moving into bylaws, and we have bylaws for 3 reading. I'm talking about 5A1, and this is Council Remuneration and Expense Amendment Bylaw, as which we just discussed. And I need a motion to read that 3 times. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Neufeld. I doubt we need any further discussion. All those in favor, opposed, and carried. That's read 3 times. Now moving to bylaws for final adoption. We have a series of bylaws there. I see 5 in total, and an appropriate recommendation of all 5. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Powell. Is there any member of council that wishes to indicate their opposition to any of those 5 items? All right, seeing none. Any discussion? Seeing none. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to the new business section for this evening. Now, some of you are likely aware this is the last regular meeting of council for this council, at least, although we will continue in these roles until the end of the month. There are other events. However, I suspect that some of our outgoing members may wish to say a few words. But what I'll do is I'll start on the right here with Councillor Neufeld and move around the table, and so be it if anyone wishes to say anything or, of course, provide any new business. Councillor Neufeld.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I like the way that you put that. Outgoing members of the council.
It is true.
In fact, I will be an outgoing member of the council. It's either going to be Monsieur Lefebvre or myself who will be mayor. I have a feeling, and I shouldn't say that, and I apologize to Mr. Farina and Mr. Honeiser for that discussion. I actually, for the last 3 years, I have enjoyed being on council, and I think that although there's been some discussion about my ability to play ball with the group, I think that I've been here to represent the community at large, and in fact present in some cases a very contrarian view to the position taken by council. But I have enjoyed it. I find it frustrating at times, but in fact it has been an enlightening experience, and I look forward, actually, I'm sorry, Monsieur Lefebvre, but I'm looking forward to being mayor. We will see where that takes me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor Powell-Davidson. Now, you will not be returning, no matter what happens.
Nope.
Any final words?
I'll make this very short and sweet. I just want to say to the residents of Parksville how much I have enjoyed being a counselor with the city of Parksville. I thank them for the opportunity to do this for the past 6 years. I am not going to cry. It's been a great learning experience, and it's been a sheer source of pride and joy to represent this city at all the events that I've been to. I'd like to say thank you very, very much to the staff for all their professionalism, all of their help, all of their guidance, and always a big smile and a happy greeting. So I'm not going to be leaving Parksville in the near future. I will see you all around, but I do want to thank you. Our roles will change. I'm now just a resident. I do want to say a special mention to our friends in the media. They've been kind. Thank you very much for that, guys. And especially to my fellow councillors. Some of you I've served with for the past 6 years, others just 3. It has been a pleasure. It has been one of the toughest decisions I have had to make, whether or not to run, but the time is right to move on to other things, and so I am. And in one final action as your counselor, I'm going to make a motion, if you'll please bear with me. As you all know, Council, the Parksville Historical Society, with our blessings, ran a pilot project this past summer, which was the Parksville Farmers Market at the museum, and it was tremendously successful. The goal of that event was to raise awareness of our wonderful historical park and all of the archives within it, as well as to increase attendance and support the museum. They met that goal in droves, and they have been sparked by the creative bug and are ready to move on with other events. As Council is also aware, the zoning is nebulous that they currently have, in that it allows for special events, but of course the more often you run a special event, it doesn't become less special, but it does become less of a special event, if you get what I'm trying to say here. So the zoning needs to be amended to allow for the farmers market and other events. And the Parksville Historical Society has asked me as their council liaison, and I'm happy to do it, to bring forward a motion to ask staff to review and prepare a report for council's consideration.
With respect to making the changes necessary in land use to accommodate the ongoing events.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have that motion on the floor. Members of council, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Neufeld. Discussion. All right, Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm confused. When you're talking about amending and zoning, isn't there a proper process to follow? And so does this sort of undermine that process?
No, this
Explain
is
it to me then, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Manson.
If I may, Your Worship, the City of Parksville is the owner of the land. We would have to be the ones that would initiate an application for rezoning, and in essence, that's what this is doing.
All right, very good. Further questions from members of council on that motion? All right, seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, thank you very much, Councillor Powell-Davidson. And we shall move along to Councillor Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I would like to bring to council's attention something under new business as a result of the last council meeting. At the last council meeting, I made a request from council to take to the RDN board a motion, an appended motion, which I'll read in a moment, which I did and was passed unanimously, but it's based on the motion that the City of Parksville request the Regional District of Nanaimo develop a bylaw similar to the Cowichan Valley Regional District's land clearing debris bylaw, and that was carried. The appendage I made to that motion at the RDN board a week ago Tuesday was that the issues, or a week ago this past Tuesday, tomorrow rather, and the appended motion was that the issues of large-scale burning of agricultural and development land clearing debris be referred to staff for review of regulatory options, and that staff report back to the board on options for consideration. And that was passed unanimously, and the intent there, the unwritten intent there, is that the RDN staff and our staff, city staff, would work together, consulting, for example, the island health officials because of the health impacts of this particular burning incident that we had. And finally, 12 years. There's three highlights that I want to go over my 12 years on council to date. And the first one is that the highly competent and dedicated staff that the city have, successes that we've succeeded in are in large measure due to them. They know no boundaries in terms of hours of work, and they're highly dedicated and professional in what they do, and I speak for all of the staff in that regard, and I'm thankful for that. The second thing that I noted over the 12 years is the respect that existed around this table. In the first 8 years before yourself, Your Worship, it was the respect was there for the position of the mayor, for councillors, and for staff. And the other aspect of that, along with respect, is when a decision was made, there could have been a great deal of debate and a great deal of, I would say, hardly charged debate and a great deal of bordering on arguing, which is okay. But once the decision was made, and we walked away from that decision, and we left it alone. Nobody came back and pounded the table or was begrudging about the decision that was made. It was made, and people walked away. And I thought that was a very wonderful characteristic of the people that sat around this table. And then, of course, you, Mr. Mayor, came on 4 years ago, and you've continued that tradition, and I want to thank you for that. And the other thing is that I'm losing not an appendage, but I guess we're the longest serving on this council, and time has flown by. I can't believe that it's been 12 years. So I'm thankful for all of those things, and I think it's a hallmark of the city. We didn't make the headlines too often in the newspaper, not to comment on any other municipality in the area, but we didn't, and I'm grateful for that, and I think it demonstrates the type of leadership that we've had and the type of the way in which we've dealt with issues and the staff that we've had, the excellent staff. So that's my comments for the last 12 years.
Thank you, Councillor Lefebvre.
And good luck, Councillor Neufeld.
Skipping over for the moment, Councillor Powell, did you have any items of new business?
Well, I've only been here 9 years, so I don't have as much to say as Councillor Lefebvre. I would like to say that one of the strengths of council has always been the ability to work together. I come from a different end of the political spectrum than most people that come to this council, and I appreciate that we were able to work together to achieve a lot of goals. We got things done. I had support for the things I'd like to get done, and vice versa. I would like to say that it's been a pretty humbling being on council because, you know, I came here with a bunch of ideas. I was going to change the world, and it isn't about me. It's about the community of Parksville, and that means the business community, the people that live in this community, and the environment. It's all connected. And so for me, that's how when I make decisions, I try and think that way. And God willing, I'll be elected again, and I can do another 4 more years, and then it'll be 13, and I will have beaten you.
Well, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated, I won't be running again this year. It wasn't an easy decision for me to come to. With my job, I just didn't think it was fair to the citizens for me to represent with the limited time I'm going to have to prepare for things like tonight's meeting. I've always been the quiet one on council, and I'm not the most vocal one, but I assure you I always deliberated on everything and made a point of making decisions that I thought were in the best for Parksville as a whole. And I know there's a few candidates in the audience, so I trust you'll do the same.
All right, thank you for that. Of course, I saved the last word here for myself, probably the last time. I just wanted to echo the sentiment of all the members of council. I want to start by simply saying to staff, thank you so much for your ongoing service first. I've said it before, I'll say it again, we have the best municipal staff anywhere in this province, and I've worked with a number of you for many years, and I know very well to the extent that you are dedicated to this city, and it's truly appreciated, and it's truly shown on our streets. To the members of council, you can all be very, very proud of your service. I think it is without question that this city is in better shape today than it was when you first arrived, whether it be 12 years ago or 3 years ago. And I think that that's something that regardless of the outcome of the upcoming election, regardless of whether you're running or not, successful or not, it's something that you can keep with you for the rest of your lives, that you absolutely stepped up as true residents of any community and gave back, more so than many will. And for that, I'm just very, very proud of all of you. And of course, for myself, it's an absolute privilege to have been in this chair. It's been something that I will also keep with me till my dying days. And I can tell you that for anyone out there that's considering something like this in the future, maybe you didn't quite make the move this go around, I would really encourage you to consider it. And for the candidates that are running, if you're not successful, just remember Winston Churchill wasn't successful the first go-round either, in fact, the first few. So don't let that discourage you, because it is such a special experience to be in local government and to be so close to the people you represent, and to be in a community like this one, where virtually everyone, with just the odd exception, is supportive of you, even if they don't agree necessarily with all of the decisions you made. So with no further ado, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. All right, let's move on before Councillor Paul Davidson starts weeping too much here. And we do have, ladies and gentlemen, special business, so I'm going to request a motion that pursuant to Section 91C of the Community Charter, Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider an item related to labor relations. Moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Paul. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time to be with us this evening. Thank you.